Hey all, here are OS Reviews. A couple days ago, we did a review on the KZ-CCA Lyris, which are a pair of IEMs in-ear monitors that have hi-fi sound at a really low price point. Well, today we're taking a look at another model, which is on the opposite end of the spectrum. They still have that really flashy design, but make no mistake, these are going to be flagship premium pairs, being the Basin Bmaster 2nd Gen editions, and they retail for about $120 a pop. So definitely not cheap, but you are now talking about an option that has quad drivers, inclusive of one dynamic driver and 3 balanced armatures. Now, of course, having 4 drivers or small speakers inside should technically get it more detailed and nuanced sound. It retains that quite distinctive look because of this crystal-like pattern, still is very flashy and comes in multiple colors. There's a silver edition, a gold version, and the one that we have here is a silver plus gold edition, so one on each side has a different color. This particular brand, Basin, I would say they're not quite as well known as KZ are in terms of the audiophile space, but they do still make a ton of these IEMs, which offer competitive pricing and a variety of different setups, including drivers, and on the lower side, they also have more budget models as well. So on here, it looks like the dynamic driver is 10 millimeters in size. They use these MMCX detachable cables so you can replace them if it breaks. And again, the whole argument around these IEMs, which are still wired 3.5 millimeter headphones at the end of the day, is that they're going to be high-res audio certified, packing you as much detail and resolution as possible into the sound, compared to wireless buds, which at the end of the day will always be a lossy format. So if you are someone that really cares about getting as detailed sound as possible, that's where having wired pairs will still serve you a bit better, but you lose the convenience of being able to move around, I would say, quite as freely as TWS buds. Some of the specs reiterated on the side, audiophile grade sound, and then on the inside we have that crazy design here that is staring us in the face. We'll take a closer look in a moment, but underneath here we do have all of the accessories. It is, of course, well presented, as it should be, as a flagship premium pair, inclusive of a case, although this is actually a soft case instead of being made out of a rigid plastic. But still it will house the headphones when you're on the go, along with any spare accessories that you want to take with you. A quick user guide, along with adapters in terms of plugging it, converting the 3.5 millimeters into a quarter jack. We also get some foam tips as well, so that will get you more noise isolation, a tighter seal, higher comfort, although foam tips in general will also dampen the bass. So if you are someone that's more of a bass head, that's where silicone tips can get you more of that responsive punch. And we also have 2 sets of cables included out the box. One of them here includes a bundled microphone, so you can use this for making phone calls. It also has a remote for things like play, pause, and also skip track commands. It feels very tactile and clicky, so you can use this maybe if you're connecting it to a phone, for instance, but everything else in terms of the wire being textured, as well as the chrome accented plates, they're all exactly the same. All these shiny titanium accents with the red and blue to delineate between left and right sides. Looks ultra premium. And taking a closer look at the design of these IEMs, again, they are very eye-catching, but just like the CCA Lyris, they're not actually giving you this weird texture on the front. It's actually flat, so it's just kind of an illusion that is made underneath of this flat acrylic resin that gets you this reflective and crazy finish. Although it looks kind of like gemstones from afar, they're actually made of these gouges. Back here has a slight ergonomic wing, so it will fit a little bit more comfortably as you're wearing them. Despite having 4 drivers, I wouldn't say they're necessarily too much larger or heavier compared to other single driver IEMs, which is good. And then we have just that universal MMCX one-pronged connector, and then just the mesh itself. Moving into audio quality and performance, I have to say that the Bmaster 2nd Gens luckily don't disappoint in terms of they are very detailed. These are incredibly nuanced, so if you're listening to orchestral or studio tracks, you can really peel away and notice details that you would typically miss on less expensive headphones. So they can separate almost every single instrument. They are also really neutral sounding, which is going to really benefit artists and musicians that want something that is super realistic, such as music monitoring. Definitely emphasizes the mids and trebles a bit more than the bass. Now, trebles on the higher end, I would say, is the most impressive part, because that is also the frequency range where less expensive headphones tend to struggle the most with. In fact, it can be even a little bit too harsh, or I would say too detailed up there, and sometimes you do have to play around with the EQ settings a bit to occasionally pull it down a little bit more. So especially for acoustic tracks and again, music that really emphasizes and has a lot of instrumentals like violins, for instance, and at higher frequency. This is where these are definitely going to shine. Bass is still present, and you definitely hear the impact when you're listening to a drum beat, for instance, but it's just not quite as overpowering as on many other more consumer or V-shaped tuned headphones. Overall comfort on these, I would say, have been also very good. So things like moving around a bit, they still stayed in place really without any problems. I could wear them for a couple of hours without noticing too much stress or strain, and overall they definitely are very fashionable and just unique looking from a design perspective. Now, of course, if there are any weaknesses, just like most IEMs, they still are wired. So that means if you're doing a ton of jogging and the wire will still bounce around, it can occasionally tangle, and that noise as the wire is moving will still create a little bit of background distraction. But again, primarily if you're using this for just regular walking around or sitting down and enjoying the music, that's where you're going to have the best experience. And overall, I'm glad to say that despite looking really flashy, it's not just a case of style over substance, but they do pack really clear audio, especially in the trebles. I think that has to be the most impressive part about the sound here. So if you like the way they look, and again, you're not really a bass head necessarily, you want something more neutral sounding, this is definitely not a bad pair to consider, especially from a brand that we haven't heard of quite as much in the past. You can check out more details in the links below, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Review.